So I finally tried some open back headphones, and man, I genuinely believe that everyone who enjoys music should try these out at least once. The one I have here is the Sennheiser HD 560S. It's a fairly entry level-ish but still really good open back headphone. I got this from the audio store. I saw them listed for a fairly decent price, so I borrowed it for a few days to test it out. Shout out to them for letting me play with it.
Hey, yo!
I mean the headphone. I know the box and packaging seems dated because this isn't a new product. And even the headphones themselves feel pretty mediocrely built in terms of the plastics and everything. It doesn't feel premium at all for the price. Even these cushions are like okay, they're not anything extraordinary. But obviously that's not the point here. The highlight is this open back design. And before we talk about the sound quality and everything, let me quickly address why open back is kind of special. Now you may already know the biggest downside of an open back headphone, which is that sound will literally bleed out since the back is, well, open. So anyone sitting close to you will clearly hear what you're listening to, even if the volume is like 30 or 40%. But that same sound bleeding design actually gives it two distinct advantages. This design has very little internal sound reflection. You see, with a closed back headphone, the sound can sometimes bounce around inside and cause unnecessary resonance. Now, it isn't usually a concern, but for critical listening, it might be detectable for high-end audiophiles. So an open back design just lets those sounds go out instead of bouncing back into your ears. So that should reduce the unnecessary resonance and improve the accuracy. And the second advantage is that the drivers can move more freely because there is less pressure buildup. In a closed back headphone, since there isn't much room to move air around, the drivers may not be able to move as freely. With this, obviously the air just moves out, so there's no concern of that. The drivers can move much more freely, and as a result it can probably go deeper or rather extend its frequencies on either end. And that, combined with the environmental sounds around you, which you will hear anyways, should give you a wider perceived soundstage. And yes, that is indeed true. These can go deeper or higher in the frequency range than most closed back headphones. Now, closed back designers have found ways around these issues by introducing like micro valves for pressure release and all that. But an open back design is one of the oldest and simplest ways to ensure you get a nice soundstage. And after listening to these, I am convinced these are still relevant. So let's get into it then, the sound. To drive these, I didn't bother using my phone because these require a lot of power and my phone will end up draining a lot of battery. So I just used it with my PC with an external DAC. And that worked really well. Even at 35 or 40% volume, I could power these easily. Of course, there are much nicer ways to drive these, but this is what I have at the moment, so let's try it out. I spent some time listening to these and I am impressed. Now these in particular, the 560S, compared to the legendary HD600, have a better bass response. Like, that's one of the main complaints I've heard from people who either use or own a HD600, that the bass isn't fully extended. Well, this one is better. It's really deep and solid. There is no resonance whatsoever, mainly thanks to that open back design. So it hits really deep and stays there. That's what she said. Like, it doesn't come back to bite you in the mid-range, or it doesn't feel fluffy, if that makes sense. Like, it feels extremely tight. Some people said there isn't enough bass on these 560S. Maybe they are more bass lovers. I don't really like that much bass in general, so I love these. The mids are actually comparable to the HD600, but the top end is where the 600 probably pulls ahead. These aren't as bright as the 600 would be in the upper mids, and even the treble extension may not be as good. But for a lower price, I think these do a really good job at kind of giving a best of all worlds. You know, you get really good bass, excellent treble response, a wonderful upper mid-range, and of course that wide stereo soundstage. There were some tracks where I could literally tell, objects moving from afar, and I couldn't pick up the same detail using my high-end IEMs, which actually cost kind of similar. I used my main IEM setup, and that had nowhere near the extremities, the extreme low end and extreme high end as this thing does. The middle frequencies, like the mid bass to maybe even upper mids and treble, you can achieve that with IEMs, but the extreme ends of the frequency, nah. This one's better in every way. It comfortably reaches so much further into the treble section, the kind of which I had never experienced before. And again, the bass is wonderful. I love the vocals on these. It's overall an amazing experience. I mean, it's not meant to be an isolating experience. Like, even when the music was playing, I could even hear the faintest finger snaps next to my ears. And of course, others could hear what I'm listening to as well, and they were a little concerned with my playlists. But that aside, this is absolutely a fantastic choice for a sit down, desktop level listening. Because these are not portable, right? They require a lot of power. So, unless you have one of those portable DAPs that can power these, you can't really take them with you. And even if you do, again, these will be like tiny speakers for everyone around you. So it's a little annoying in public. It's meant to be a dedicated, active listening session. You don't just wear these and do some chores. You sit down and pay attention. That's what this is for. It makes you appreciate and respect the art of listening to music. You can enjoy it truly while immersed in this. And you know what? I'm convinced, even though this is something I borrowed, I will buy a open back headphone for myself. It probably won't be this because it has some comfort issues. This swivel, like I mentioned, isn't that good. The build is mediocre. There probably is a better option out there. A few other brands also make open back headphones, so I would like to check those out too. But either way, you let me know what you think.